The first rain of the season arrived the night Tembi turned 18, drumming on the zinc roof of the hill house like impatient fingers. Javla woke to the sound and found the boy already dressed, standing at the window watching water stream down the glass. Tembi held a letter, thick cream paper sealed with red wax. He didn't turn when Javla entered. "University acceptance," he said. "Full scholarship. Engineering. They want me in Yaoundé next month." Jamze appeared in the doorway wrapped in a wrapper the color of ripe plantain. She took the letter, read it twice, then pressed it to her chest as if warming cold hands. "Your father built roads with his hands," she told Tembi. "You will build them with your mind." She didn't mention the years of night classes Tembi had taken by lantern light, or the way Nai had mailed textbooks from the city, or the nights Javla had driven extra runs to pay examination fees. Some sacrifices allowed her in silence. They celebrated with a goat slaughtered in the yard and enough fufu to feed the quarter. Salai arrived in the governor's jeep, now his jeep, wearing a suit that cost more than Javla's first year's salary. He brought a crate of Guinness and a speech about destiny. Nai came by bus, carrying a cake layered with mango cream and 18 candles that refused to stay lit in the wind. She and Jamze stood shoulder to shoulder at the table, two mothers cutting one cake, their knives moving in perfect rhythm. The next weeks were a blur of packing and goodbyes. Tembi folded his airplane sheets into a box labeled memories. He gave his football to the neighbor boy who had once carried water for the foundation. On the last night he asked Javla to walk with him to the baobab at the junction. The tree had grown fatter, its roots cracking the tarmac. Tembi traced the scar where Nai once carved a heart. "Papa," he said, "when I was small I thought heroes wore capes. Now I know they wear worry lines and drive slow so children don't fall off the back of the bus." Javla swallowed dust that tasted like tears. "Heroes are just fathers who keep showing up," he said. "Go build something that lasts longer than we do." The bus left at dawn. Jamze stood at the gate until the dust settled, then went inside and baked bread until the kitchen smelled like Nai's bakery. Javla drove the empty school bus route out of habit, waving at ghosts of children who no longer needed him. The hill house felt too large with only 2 heartbeats. They left Tembi's room untouched, bed made, books stacked, a single airplane sheet folded at the foot like a flag at half-mast. Jamze took to sitting on the veranda at dusk, shelling groundnuts into a bowl she never finished. Javla found her there one evening staring at a photograph, Tembi at 10, gap-toothed, holding a croissant the size of his head. Nai's handwriting on the back, "First batch, burnt but proud." "We should visit," Jamze said suddenly. "Take the red pickup. Surprise him." Javla started to protest, fuel prices, the governor's schedule, but the look in her eyes stopped him. Some journeys are measured in kilometers, others in the closing of distances that never belonged on maps. They left on a Friday, the pickup loaded with Jamja's Aku paste, Javla's toolbox, and a cooler of palm wine chilled with blocks of ice that melted before Bamenda. The road unspooled like old film, villages where Javla once stopped for roasted corn, bridges he had crossed with Tembi asleep on his lap, a police checkpoint where the officer saluted the medal Javla no longer wore. They sang along to Makossa tapes until the cassette player chewed the ribbon and spat it out like confetti. Yaoundé swallowed them in noise and heat. Tembi met them outside the university gate wearing a new haircut and the dazed look of a village boy discovering traffic lights. He led them through campus, pointing out lecture halls that smelled of chalk and ambition, a library with more books than the entire NSO district, a dormitory room shared with a boy from the coast who kept fish in a bucket. Jamze unpacked the cooler on the narrow bed, aku, koki, fried plantain wrapped in banana leaves. Students appeared as if summoned by smell, shy at first, then ravenous. Tembi watched his parents feed strangers and understood something about inheritance that no textbook could teach. Nai found them at the cafeteria, apron dusted with flour, eyes bright with tears she refused to let fall. She had closed the bakery early, bribed the security guard with donuts. The 4 of them sat at a plastic table under a mango tree and ate in silence until Tembi broke it. "I want to tell you something," he said. "There's a girl, engineering too. Her name is Solange. She thinks my mother's a legend." He blushed the color of overripe tomatoes. Jamze laughed first, a sound like bells breaking loose. Nai joined, then Javla, until the table shook and passers-by stared. When the laughter settled, Nai reached across and squeezed Jamja's hand. "We did all right," she said. Jamze squeezed back. "We're still doing." They stayed a week. Javla fixed the dormitory generator, earning free meals for a month. Jamze taught Solange's roommates to make eru that didn't taste like sadness. Nai took them to her bakery at 3 a.m., showed Tembi how to score baguettes so they bloomed like flowers in the oven. On the last night they climbed the hill behind the campus and watched the city glitter below. Tembi stood between his mothers, Javla a step behind, one hand on each woman's shoulder. Somewhere a muezzin called, church bells answered, car horns harmonized. The world was loud and imperfect, and theirs. Back home the hill house waited, patient as earth. The pineapple fence had grown thick, fruit heavy enough to bend a wire. Jamze harvested the first ones and made jam that tasted like sunrise. Javla planted a new mango tree where the old veranda step had rotted. They left Tembi's room as it was, but added a desk lamp powered by the solar panel Salai installed as a retirement gift. Letters arrived regularly now, thick envelopes smelling of yeast and engine oil. Tembi wrote about lectures, failed exams, past exams, Solange's laugh that sounded like rain on zinc. He sent photos, him in a hard hat on a bridge site, Solange holding a blueprint like a love letter, the two of them at a nightclub wearing clothes Jamze would pretend to disapprove of. Nye added postcards from bakery openings in Douala, Limbe, a tiny shop in Buea where she trained deaf apprentices to shape dough by feel. One letter came sealed with the university crest. Tembi had been selected for an exchange program, 6 months in South Africa, building low-cost housing in townships. He asked permission the way he once asked to stay up late. Javla wrote back on the back of a fuel receipt, "Permission is yours. Courage is the only tuition we ever asked." The day Tembi flew out, Jamze baked a loaf shaped like an airplane. Nye iced it with blue wings. They drove to Douala Airport, the red pickup rattling like an old friend. Security wouldn't let them past the gate, so they stood on the observation deck and waved until the plane became a silver bird against the clouds. Jamje's wrapper fluttered like a flag. Nye's apron strings tangled in the wind. Javla felt the absence settle in his chest like a stone that would travel with him always. The hill house grew quieter. Javla took to walking the pineapple fence at dusk, checking for ripe fruit the way he once checked Tembi's temperature. Jamze joined the women's cooperative, teaching young brides to budget bride price and self-worth in the same lesson. They adopted a dog that wandered in during Hamadan, ribs showing, eyes wise. They named him Medal for the way he limped on 3 legs but still chased lizards. One Sunday the phone rang, landline, the old one with the curly cord. Salai's voice crackled through. "Get to the palace. Emergency council. Bring Jamze." They drove in silence, the dog riding shotgun, nose out the window. The palace parlor was packed, Fonds councillors, police, a woman in a pantsuit from the Ministry of Women's Affairs. On the table lay a file thick as a Bible. Salai didn't waste words. Human traffickers. They target villages where heroes live, figure the men are away being heroic. Last week they took 3 girls from the quarter behind the mission. One was the headmaster's daughter. He slid a photograph across, 3 teenagers in school uniforms, smiling at a graduation no one would attend. "We need someone the village trusts to go undercover. Someone who knows every footpath, every lying tongue." Every eye turned to Javla. He felt the old weight settle on his shoulders, heavier now because the shoulders were older. Jamze spoke before he could. "He goes, I go. 2 heads see further than one." The pantsuit woman started to protest. Salai silenced her with a look. Driver and cook, perfect cover. They left at dawn in a market van borrowed from Jamje's cooperative. Javla wore a faded agbada, Jamze a headtie printed with tomatoes. Inside the false bottom of a crate of dried fish lay a tracker, a pistol, and a list of villages where girls had vanished. The dog stayed behind with strict instructions to guard the pineapple. The first village was a 3-hour drive on roads that forgot they were roads. Children stared at the strangers. Old women offered roasted corn and information. The traffickers operated from a palm wine bar disguised as a church, promising jobs in the city, delivering chains. Javla drank the wine, listened to lies, memorized faces. Jamze sold tomatoes and gossip, her smile sharp as a cutlass. At night they slept in a hut offered by a widow whose own daughter had disappeared 2 monsoons ago. She gave them a mat woven from raffle grass and a story that kept them awake. The girls were taken across the border to Nigeria, sold to factories that made clothes for brands no one in the village could pronounce. They followed the trail like breadcrumbs of grief. In the second village Javla recognized a face, the scarred cousin who had escaped the barn fire years ago, now thinner, eyes dead. The man didn't recognize Javla under the agbada and weeks of beard. Jamze served him koki and pepper that made him sweat truth. The next shipment left in 4 days, 12 girls, midnight, from a cocoa barn near the river. The rescue was messy. Rain turned the ground to soup. Police arrived late, stuck in mud. Javla and Jamze led the girls out one by one, wrapped in market cloths, barefoot and shaking. The scarred cousin raised a machete. Javla disarmed him with a crate of tomatoes and the same calm he once used on Kingsley. Jamze tied the man's hands with her headtie, knots tight as promises. When the police finally came, they found 12 girls safe and 1 trafficker trussed like a goat. The ministry woman tried to give him another medal. Jamze refused. "Give it to the girls," she said. "They earned it surviving." They drove home at sunrise, the van smelling of wet earth and relief. The dog greeted them with frantic joy, pineapple fence intact. Tembi called that night from Cape Town, voice thick with sleep and pride. Mama Jamze, Papa, the news is everywhere. They're calling you the Tomato Avengers. Jamze laughed until she cried. Javla took the phone and heard his son's voice crack. Come home when you can, Tembi said. I'm learning to build houses that don't need rescuing. They went. The red pickup carried them south through landscapes that looked like postcards from a country inventing itself. Cape Town welcomed them with cold wind and warm hugs. Tembi met them at the airport wearing a hard hat and a grin. Solange stood beside him, pregnant, hand on a belly that held the next chapter. They drove to the township where Tembi's team was raising walls from recycled bottles filled with sand. Children ran alongside the pickup shouting in Xhosa and English. An old woman pressed a beaded bracelet into Jamja's hand. For the warrior mother, she said. They stayed a month. Javla mixed cement with men who spoke languages he didn't know but understood perfectly. Jamze cooked for 50 every night, turning sad potatoes into stews that made grown men weep. Solange taught her to say, thank you, in Afrikaans. Tembi took them to Table Mountain at dawn, the city spread below like a promise kept. On the way down he asked the question he had carried across oceans. When the baby comes, will you both be grandparents? Or do I choose? Jamze answered without hesitation. Grandchildren don't choose. They collect. She touched Solange's belly. This one will have 3 grandmothers and 1 grandfather who tells terrible jokes. We will spoil accordingly. The baby arrived early, a girl with Tembi's nose and Solange's eyes. They named her Amina, after Jamja's mother. The hill house gained a 4th bedroom before the paint dried. Nye flew in from Limbe with a mobile bakery that unfolded like a transformer, turning the yard into a cloud of yeast and sugar. Salai arrived with the entire council, drunk on palm wine and sentiment. The dog wore a ribbon and refused to leave the baby's side. Years folded like clean laundry. Amina learned to walk on the veranda where her grandfather once sat with a pistol across his lap. She called Jamze, Nene, and Nye, Auntie Bread, and Javla, Papa's story, because every night he told her a new one, always ending with the same line, and the bravest thing was coming home. Tembi and Solange built houses across the continent, returning between projects with suitcases full of sand from new beaches. The red pickup finally died in the yard, engine seized, body rusting into art. Javla refused to sell it. It carried us further than metal should, he said. Children used it as a jungle gym until the wheels fell off. One evening, decades after the first wrong number buzzed, Javla found Jamze in the pineapple grove. She held a fruit so ripe it glowed. Last one, she said. The tree is tired. They sat beneath it, backs against the trunk, and peeled the pineapple with their hands. Juice ran down their wrists like liquid gold. Below them the village had grown into a town, streetlights replacing kerosene, a secondary school where Tembi funded scholarships. The baobab at the junction still stood, fatter now, roots swallowing the tarmac entirely. Someone had painted a mural on its trunk, Javla and Jamze holding hands, Tembi between them, Nye in the background with a tray of bread. Underneath in white paint, love pays in installments. Javla licked pineapple from his thumb. Think we paid in full. Jamze considered, then shook her head. Interest keeps accruing. Grandchildren, great-grandchildren, stories that outlive the tellers. She leaned her head on his shoulder, grey now but strong. We're still in debt, good debt. The sun dropped behind the hills, painting the sky the color of Jamja's first head tea. Somewhere a phone buzzed, new number, new story. Javla didn't check. He was busy counting heartbeats, his, hers, the dogs snoring on. The veranda, Amina's laughter echoing from the kitchen where Nye taught her to shape dough into stars. The pineapple grove smelled of endings and beginnings. Javla closed his eyes and felt the past settle like dust on old metals, the present warm in his hand, the future rising like bread in a hot oven. Some debts, he understood, were meant to be paid forward, one honest slice at a time. If this epic journey from wrong numbers to family forged in fire and forgiveness left you speechless, hit that subscribe button harder than Javla hit the ground in that cassava field. Drop a comment and tell me straight, from the wide open plains of Texas, the golden beaches of California, the concrete jungle of New York, or any heartbeat of this incredible country, where are you watching from today? The morning after Kingsley's arrest, the village woke to the smell of rain on hot earth. Javla stood at the gate watching the governor's compound dogs shake water from their coats. His left shoulder throbbed where the pistol butt had clipped him, but the pain felt like proof he was still alive. Tembi ran past barefoot, chasing a plastic football Jamze had bought at the Chinese shop. The boys' laughter stitched the morning together. Salai arrived before breakfast, still in the same mud-spattered jeans from the cassava field. He carried 2 bottles of Castel and a grin wide enough to shame the sun. My father wants you in the parlor at 10, he said. Uniformed men, medals, the whole circus. They're calling you a hero. Javla tried to protest. He had only wanted his family safe, but Salai was already clapping him on the back hard enough to rattle teeth. The parlor smelled of beeswax and old power. The governor sat in his carved chair, flanked by a police captain and a journalist from CRTV. A photographer adjusted lights that turned the room gold. Javla stood in his cleanest khaki shirt, feeling like a goat dressed for market. The captain pinned a cheap medal to his chest and shook his hand until Javla's fingers went numb. The journalist asked how it felt to disarm a fugitive. Javla answered that he had been too busy staying alive to feel anything. The governor beamed like a man whose rooster had won a cockfight. By afternoon the story was everywhere. Children reenacted the struggle with sticks for guns. Old men bought Javla beer and told him their own war stories. Women whispered that Jamze must have powerful juju to keep such a man. Jamze herself said nothing. She pounded plantains harder than usual and served the evening meal with extra pepper. That night Javla found her on the veranda shelling groundnuts by moonlight. He sat beside her, metal in his pocket like a hot coal. "I didn't ask for any of this," he said. She kept shelling. "Heroes don't ask," she replied. "They just bleed in the right places." She tipped the bowl so the shells fell between the slats. "But heroes also come home hungry. Eat before the pepper finishes you." The medal brought money. The governor raised Javla's salary and gave him a new pickup, red, shiny, with governor's plates that made traffic part like the Red Sea. Villagers started calling him Chef Javla behind his back. Children saluted when he passed. A local tailor offered free suits. Javla accepted the truck but refused the suits. He had learned long ago that borrowed feathers fall off in the rain. "I heard the news in Yaoundé." She was kneading dough at 4 a.m. when the bakery radio announced the capture of the fugitive thanks to brave citizen Javla Informi. Flour clouded the air as she froze, hands wide to the wrists. The head baker, a kind widow named Madame Rose, noticed. "Old friend?" she asked. Nye nodded once. Madame Rose wiped her hands and turned the radio louder, as if volume could drown regret. Back in the village, Tembi started asking questions. Why did the bad man want him? Was Papa really a soldier now? Jamze answered with stories. Your father once carried a sick goat 10 kilometers because its owner was old. He once gave his last franc to a blind beggar. Heroes are just people who keep choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. Tembi listened wide-eyed, then ran outside to practice saluting the chickens. The first crack in the new piece came on a Wednesday. Javla was driving the governor to Bamenda when the pickup's radio crackled with a distress call, armed robbers at the credit union, 2 guards down. The governor, half asleep in the back, waved a lazy hand. Handle it, hero. Javla turned the truck around so fast the tires screamed. The credit union sat beside the market, its blue walls pockmarked with bullet holes. A crowd huddled behind overturned tables. 3 masked men waved AKs and shouted for the vault. Javla parked sideways, blocking the only exit. He left the engine running, hazard lights blinking like a heartbeat. Inside his glove box lay the pistol Salai had slipped him, for emergencies. Javla had never fired a gun. He took it anyway. He walked toward the door with his hands raised, metal glinting on his chest. The robbers saw the truck, the plates, the metal, and hesitated. Javla used a second of doubt. Police are 2 minutes out, he lied. Drop the guns and walk away with your lives. One robber laughed. Another raised his rifle. Javla fired into the ceiling. Plaster rained. The robbers bolted through the back, abandoning sacks of cash and a wounded guard who would live. The second medal came faster than the first. This time the ceremony was televised. Jamze watched on the neighbor's generator TV, Tembi on her lap. When Javla's face filled the screen, she felt pride and terror in equal measure. Heroes, she remembered her mother saying, have short shadows at noon. Money followed fame. A brewery offered Javla endorsement money to appear on billboards holding a bottle of 33 export. He refused. A politician invited him to run for councillor. He refused harder. But the governor insisted he accept a plot of land on the hill overlooking the village for services rendered. The plot came with mango trees and a view that made Javla's chest ache with possibility. They broke ground on a Saturday. Half the village turned out with hose and headpans. Jamze directed traffic like a general, her head tee bright as a flag. Tembi carried water in a yellow jerry can too big for him. By sundown the foundation was marked, and the women had cooked enough jollof to feed an army. Someone started a rumor that the new house would have solar panels and indoor plumbing. Javla laughed until he realized they believed it. Nye arrived unannounced the following week. She stepped off the night bus with a suitcase and the smell of yeast in her hair. Tembi spotted her first and ran shouting, Auntie Baker. Nye knelt in the dust and let him crash into her arms. Jamze watched from the doorway, arms folded, face unreadable. Dinner was awkward. Nye praised the egusi, asked about school fees, avoided Javla's eyes. After Tembi slept, the adults sat under the mango tree. Cricket sawed the dark. Nai spoke first. I didn't come to stay. Madam Rose is opening a second shop in Bamenda. She needs a manager. I thought, maybe Tembi could visit on holidays. Learn to bake. No, his mother isn't just postcards. Jamze poured palm wine into 3 cups. He already knows 2 mothers, she said. One bakes bread, one bakes love. Both rise. She handed Nai a cup. Stay the night. Leave at dawn if you must. But eat breakfast with your son. Nai stayed 3 days. She taught Tembi to shape dough into lines. She and Jamze talked recipes until the kerosene lamp burned low. On the last morning she pressed a small tin into Javla's hand. Inside was a single croissant, still warm. For the hero who hates fame, she said. The bus coughed away before Tembi woke. The house on the hill grew slowly. Javla refused to borrow money, so every block was paid for with overtime runs and Jamja's tomato profits. They planted pineapple along the fence and named the rooms before the walls were up. Tembi's room with the airplane sheets, a guest room for Nai's rare visits, a kitchen big enough for 2 women to argue over pepper. The village watched and wagered on the finish date. Then the letters began. The first arrived in a plain envelope, no stamp, slid under the door of the old house. Inside was a single photograph, Javla. Asleep in the pickup, taken through the window. On the back, block letters, heroes make enemies. Javla showed Salai, who showed the police, who shrugged. Probably a prank. The second letter came a week later, same handwriting, I know where your son plays. This time Jamze saw it. She folded it small, tucked it into her bra, and said nothing. Javla installed bars on the windows. He taught Tembi to run home if a stranger spoke to him. He slept with the pistol under the mattress. The third letter was different, delivered by a boy who vanished before questions. Inside was a lock of hair, dark and fine, tied with red thread. Tembi's hair. Jamze recognized the curl at the end. That night she packed a small bag and told Javla she was taking Tembi to her sister in Kumbo until the danger passed. Javla begged her to stay. She kissed his forehead like a mother silencing a child. Heroes protect the village. Wives protect the future. They left at dawn. The pickup felt empty without Tembi's chatter. Javla drove dangerous roads with the governor, eyes scanning every face in the rearview. At night he sat on the unfinished veranda of the hill house, pistol across his lap, counting stars until they blurred. The stalker revealed himself on a Tuesday market day. Javla was buying nails when a man stepped from the crowd, tall, scarred, wearing the same mask pattern as the credit union robbers. He smiled with too many teeth. You cost me brothers, he said softly. Now I cost you peace. He melted back into the market before Javla could move. That evening Javla went to the palace. The governor listened, face grim. Kingsley had cousins, he said. Blood debts travel far. He assigned 2 armed guards to the hill house and promised more. Javla thanked him, but guards couldn't follow Tembi to school or Jamze to the farm. He made a decision under the mango tree where Nai once smoked regret. He would end the threat the only way he knew, by facing it. He left a note for the guards, gone to market. Back soon. He took the pistol, a flashlight, and a red threaded lock of hair. The trail led to an abandoned coffee barn outside town. Inside, kerosene lamps flickered. 3 men waited, cousins of Kingsley, rifles slung easy. They had expected police, not one man with a medal and tired eyes. Javla laid the pistol on the ground. Take me, he said. Leave my family. The leader laughed, raised his rifle. Headlights flooded the barn. Salai's voice through the megaphone, weapons down. Building surrounded. The cousins froze. Javla dove for his pistol. Gunfire cracked. A bullet grazed his thigh. Another shattered a lamp, spilling fire across dry coffee sacks. Flames raced up the walls. The cousins ran into the night. Salai's men gave chase. Javla limped out as the barn collapsed in a roar of sparks. Salai caught him before he fell. You idiot, he said, voice shaking. Heroes don't get solo scenes. Javla managed a bloody grin. Someone had to write the ending. The cousins were caught before sunrise, hiding in a goat pen. The police found letters, maps of the hill house, photos of Tembi at school. The threat died with the barn. Jamze returned the next day. She cleaned Javla's wound with warm water and no questions. Tembi brought him a drawing, Papa with a cape, Jamze with a rolling pin, both standing over a burning barn. Underneath in wobbly letters, my heroes. The hill house was finished in time for the rains. They moved in on a Sunday, carrying belongings in headpans and pick-up beds. The village came to bless the rooms with palm wine and song. Nai arrived from Bamenda with a cake shaped like the new roof. She and Jamze cut it together, feeding the first slice to Tembi, who had chocolate from ear to ear. Years rolled like market days. Tembi grew into a young man with Javla's height and Jamja's quick tongue. He won a scholarship to university in Yaoundé, where Nai now managed 3 bakeries. On holidays he split time between the hill house and her apartment above the ovens, learning to balance books and bread. He called both women mama without hesitation. Javla retired the pistol to a locked box. The medals gathered dust on a shelf beside Jamja's wooden spoons. He drove a school bus now, yellow and slow, ferrying children who saluted when he passed. The governor died of old age, Salai took his place, and the red pickup became a taxi driven by a boy who once carried water for the Hill House Foundation. One evening, decades after the barn fire, Javla sat on the veranda watching sunset bleed across the valley. Jamze brought him tea sweetened with the last of the honey. Tembi's voice drifted from the kitchen where he video-called Nye about wedding plans, his own wedding, to a girl from the coast who loved croissants and fufu in equal measure. Jamze settled beside Javla, her head on his shoulder. "Remember when you thought love cost zinc sheets?" she asked. He laughed, the sound rusty but real. "I paid in blood and apologies," he said. "Best investment I ever made." Below them the village lights winked on, one by one. Somewhere a phone buzzed with an unknown number. Javla didn't check. Some stories end where they begin, under the same sky, with the same heart beating steady against the ribs of the life it chose. If this saga of love, danger, and the price of second chances kept you on the edge of your seat for every twist, smash that subscribe button right now, because the next wrong number might be destiny calling you. Drop a comment and let me know. From the dusty backroads of Texas, the neon glow of California, the skyscraper shadows of New York, or any corner of this wild, beautiful country, where are you watching from today?